Welcome to Being at Home with George. I'm excited to be here, and let's begin the way we always begin by creating the possibility of saying yes to life, whatever comes up, embracing it, saying yes to it, and at the same time, generating hope so that we can make wise choices that are in alignment with where we want to go and who we say we are. And so I'm reminded coming up on 41 years of sobriety and just reflecting on my time back in those days. And it's interesting because history repeats itself. And what happened when I got clean, I realized I had chronic pain. And there was another way of saying there was a lot of stress from the pain, but also I believe the stress caused the pain. And the way my stress would manifest was through migraine headaches and back pain, especially tension around the neck and the shoulders and that sort of thing. And so I thought it would be helpful because a lot of times some of us are busy and we have so many things going on and we may not be aware that we're under stress. And when I talk about stress, I'm not just talking about distress, I'm talking about eustress. And like some of us are making progress, we're getting to know ourselves better and we're doing this thing called life in terms of the joy of discovery. And so you discover things and you learn things, and I'm able to let go of things and move on. But that requires a letting go. It requires a level of stress or eustress. It still affects us the same way. The body has this stress reaction or stress response to it. And we know that basically as the fight, flight, freeze, and the fawn, which is another way to say it, bending the knee and just giving up or not fighting, not challenging what's happening. And so I'm reflected and reminded that when I first got into this whole idea of taking responsibility for myself, becoming aware that the mind and the body are connected, and it was on the cutting edge back in the 1980s and the early 1990s, this idea of the mind-body connection, mind-body medicine. And one of the folks that I was working with that was helping me manage my stress when I got into recovery and I discovered I had chronic pain was Joan Borysenko. And at that time, she was one of three psychoneuroimmunologists, and that's a fancy way of saying they were working with the endocrine system and the whole mind body connection, and realizing that what we think and how we see things mentally has a reflection in the body, and the body has a reflection in the mind, and that sort of thing. So I'm reminded that in those days when I was doing all of this transformational work and recovery, dealing with chronic pain, and I was under a lot of stress, whether it was eustress or distress, it didn't really matter. It was manifesting in my body. But I had this idea that I didn't get stressed. I was too cool. I grew up a certain way, being a male. And that time, it's like, you weren't really on it that much if you confessed to having challenges, or wouldn't even call them challenges, said being stressed out. And so in my mind, I was saying, oh, I'm okay. It's not too much stress. And then when I started listening to my body, because the body don't lie, it said, dude, I don't know about you, but there's some stress in here. And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, because your shoulders are up around your ears and there's a lot of tightness and whatnot. And then because we talk about saying yes to life. So that means saying yes to anxiety or stress, even though we may not feel like we're having it, but we might be in denial about it. But just going into my body and I just opening up and saying, okay, let me check it out and see if it's true. And of course, once I did that, I was able to see that, and how it manifested was interesting because I would say I learned in that mind body process and learning about myself. I was a type A personality without the hostility though. And so that means we do everything. It's like that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. That would be me. So it was having an impact on me. And then just really by opening up and saying, okay, maybe it's true. And I realized that when I was getting migraine headaches, it was because I was either doing too much or trying too hard. And then I would have to just dial it back and just go lay down and just relax and do deep breathing. And I learned how to manage the migraine headaches. That's the self-regulation we talk about all the time. And I'm wondering, because there's a lot of stress in the system always, but now there seems to be a lot more because I can see in people's behaviors that there's not this willingness, there's a grievance, or there's an inability to show kindness to each other the way we used to. An example of that is like if I'm driving and I stop and let somebody go by, usually they say thank you. And now I get this look like, what took you so long? So it's manifesting in many ways. But my point is, that we need to listen to the body because the body tells us things. So it tells me when I'm stressed out. It tells me when I'm tired and I need to dial it back. And it also tells me when what I'm doing is working and I have more energy, more enthusiasm, more joy. just more positive energy. And so just a reminder to myself and all of us that this idea of tuning into the body, because the body will tell us things that the mind may not be interested in or willing to tell us. And so that's really it. I just want to talk about this idea of listening to the body, because the body doesn't lie. The body tells you exactly where you are.